Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining the third in our Smart Orchard webinar series with Innovate Ag. I'm Steve Mantle, and today we are joined by Davis Instruments. We very much appreciate Davis and working together with us on our Smart Orchard approach. And I'll be joined today by Rodney Voumard, an almond grower from California, Joel Ocam from Davis Instruments, and the lovely Jessica Quitmeyer, who will walk us through putting Davis to work for you. So, quick overview of who's who in the zoo. Innovate Ag, I'm founder of Innovate Ag, and we are working predominantly in the permanent crop space as an ag tech startup and bringing together data silos. Joel is in the sales org at Davis Instruments and has been there a number of years, and has a meteorology background. Jessica's focused specifically on ag sales. I love that she's got a tie in there with avocado sales and all sorts of good stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, we're really happy today to have Rodney here to talk about his perspective as to how he's been using Davis Instruments over the years for his almond orchard. So I wanted to start for a minute just with a quick overview of who is Innovate Ag and what are we doing. Ultimately, our focus is grower-centric, and it's about bringing daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal insights to growers based on what we are seeing increasingly as the many data silos that you as growers face. And so taking those data sources, which range from satellite imagery to weather sources to your packing and distribution data, market pricing, soil survey data from USDA, and so on and so forth, bring it all into one cloud computing platform, making that available so that you have access to that consolidated data, but then ultimately doing the same thing with researchers so we can take the latest WSU, OSU, and other disease models, crop management guidance, pest management guidance, and so on, and apply that to those daily insights. So that's basically our focus. As I mentioned, it's permanent crops predominantly, starting with apples, increasingly getting into grapes and nuts. So with that said, I want to hand it off to Jessica to walk us through Davis Instruments.
Hey everyone, as mentioned, I'm focused in agriculture, so EnviroMonitor system is really what I work in. And I'm looking forward to going through it. But first, I want to hand the platform off to Rodney Voumard for him to discuss how EnviroMonitor works with his operation.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be here, and I hope I can add some positive insight from a farmer or a grower's perspective. Weather, what part of our day in agriculture do we not concern ourselves with weather? In the aspect of what we do on tree nuts, my main concern is frost protection. I spend a lot of time on soil moisture and the tracking and irrigation scheduling based upon what the data from Davis and the soil probes are telling me. And then there's always some soft benefits. I'm watching chilling hours now add up just as a curiosity. People think sometimes it's the warm California summers that make almonds and peaches and all of our crops prosper, but it's actually the cold weather that has a huge effect. So growing and weather go hand in hand. And we're coming into a season now where I'm starting to really watch and make sure I have all the perimeters for frost control set up and making sure the equipment's performing adequately. So that's where I'm headed today. Once we get through frost and set a crop, then we'll migrate over and start watching soil temperature. And we have probes for that. And when the soil temperature reaches a certain level, that'll trigger some applications of products. And as we migrate into irrigation season, and we're watching what the soil is doing in terms of holding capacity and irrigation scheduling. We've unfortunately lost him, but we had an excellent Cal Poly SLO graduate at the Almond board up in Modesto, and he specialized in water. And he's said the most important ingredient in our growing tool shed, if you would, is fertilizer or I mean, the gauntlet goes on, but he was hugely in belief that if we're not watering properly, we're not going to be able to grow a proper crop. So I think that aspect is something we're going to start dialing into very carefully. California, as Mark Twain said, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. So that's just a quick synopsis of what I do with the Davis equipment. I have it going to the Mobilize platform out the door when frost season hits, and it's very nice to know that I've got a link to the weather station and what's happening as I'm running around trying to get pumps started and helping neighbors get their pumps started. And so that's the aspect of being able to take that mobile with me is huge.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodney. Appreciate your input. And thank you for bringing up Mobilize. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on too. All right, so quick dive into Davis Instruments and who we are. We've been around for over 50 years, privately owned. Last year, we were acquired by a group called Advanced Environmental Monitoring. So we are now one of several sister companies who all focus in different industries and bringing environmental instruments to those industries. We're ISO certified, and products that we produce are designed, assembled, and tested in our Hayward, California facility. So we primarily work with weather instruments, and that kind of ties into agricultural industry really well. We also do have marine instruments too. And just as a reference, that map down at the bottom you'll see is all of our public weather stations worldwide. You can see this on weatherlink.com. These are all public stations, so there's thousands more out there that are kept private by the customers as they wish. All right, let's dive into EnviroMonitor. The EnviroMonitor system is really for your remote field, in-field data. You're going to bring in weather data, you're going to be bringing in soil moisture data, many other third-party sensors that we work with. And the goal is to allow the grower to have that real-time data to respond to what's going on in their field and make the decisions that need to be made. Quick glance at our system and the components that are involved. You'll start with your EnviroMonitor Gateway. This is kind of considered the brain. It's the connection to the cloud. Then you'll go out and create a system of nodes out in the field that will then bring in additional sensor data. And this is all done with a smart device and configured, and data's all there. Diving a little deeper, so our gateway, we do have two different models. The first will be your cellular gateway, which is great for that more remote location that lacks some infrastructure. It's all self-contained. The solar panel is recharging that 6-volt battery in there. It's talking directly to the weather station. It receives data from up to 25 nodes. You're configuring the gateway with your, and it does require an annual service. Ethernet equipped. So you're looking at places like maybe your office, your home, a winery perhaps with the vineyards. And once you have that all chosen, you're going to dive into your weather station. So Davis does provide several different weather stations to choose from, but we suggest using our Grow Weather Sensor Suite. Now the Grow Weather Sensor Suite does come with your temperature, humidity, rainfall, wind speed and direction, and barometric pressure, but it also includes a solar radiation sensor, and that allows us to provide that ET calculation on the platform. And once you have your weather station and your gateway, you're ready to start expanding that sensor network with our nodes. All right. So our nodes are very similar to our cellular gateway. They are self-contained. They are going to be charged with that solar panel and a rechargeable battery. They do read up to 4 sensors, different sensors. They communicate via radio, and they will communicate with each other, node to node, or they'll communicate directly back to the gateway with the goal of them creating the best network to get all that data back to the gateway. And we do see some distance of communication up to about 10,000 feet with our external antennas. So you can really stretch your fields and that data with a line of sight.
All right. Well, as Jessica mentioned, my name is Joel Ocam. I am a meteorologist, and I have the excellent advantage of working with all of our sensors, third party and internally. So as you can see, here's a very small list of the sensors that we work with. The flow meters, pressure switches, pressure sensors, soil moisture, you see aerometer on there, Syntec. Meter, I understand, just did a presentation last. So we are very open to working with as many sensors as we can. We want to grow EnviroMonitor so that it will work with everybody out there. So we try to look at it as being sensor agnostic and happy to work with as many sensors as we can. So if there's something you want to monitor that we currently don't have a sensor in our sensor list, then please let us know. We'll look into it, work with you on a specific sensor make and model, and happy to get that on board if it works in with the business plan. So that'd be great. Let us know, and we're happy to work forward with that. So as Jessica said, the EnviroMonitor system is made up of gateway nodes. Nodes connect to the sensors. This is one of our test plots early on. As you can see, it's relatively small with regards to space coverage, and there are a lot of nodes in these 2 fields. You can see the small dots are nodes, the gateways in the lower left-hand corner. And what we did here was to demonstrate the mesh network that the nodes monitor and the nodes maintain. So everything is smart. The gateway has a lot built into it. The nodes do also, and you never touch it. You get it set up and they start all the communications. The node's primary goal is get the data back to the gateway. What is the best path to do that? And what is the most efficient way forward? If something happens and a node's no longer available, or it's blocked for some reason, then the nodes will go through and immediately re-optimize and reevaluate a new pathward back. As you can see, we've got green and yellow. So that's because the greens are primaries, the yellows are secondaries. All these pathways were changing constantly. The nodes monitor and reevaluate and optimize their pathway. So in that, this is a small view of very small fields. The mesh network, if you look at it and think of this as covering, let's say 5 or 10 miles, then that would be more of an applicable use of the EnviroMonitor mesh network. So that'll give you an idea of how the systems are used out in the fields, out in the real world, and we're happy to have gotten out of these test facilities. But as you can see, we shot right through the orchards and were able to get signal back. But then your no longer going 10,000 feet from node to node. Now you're going down 1,000 feet or 500 feet to shoot through the trees. So as we mentioned, the entire system is smart. We have built an app, an EnviroMonitor app that goes on your smartphone to help our smart system get set up. It's as easy as that. You go in, you open up EnviroMonitor app, and it is truly dedicated towards configuring the EnviroMonitor system and the mesh network. When you open the app, it'll give you a list of all of the systems that you currently have installed. It will ask you if you want to add a new system or if you want to evaluate one of the current systems. You click on the plus sign. It says, what gateway do you want to add? You give it a name, and then it asks to connect to the gateway, and it literally walks you through each and every step of the installation process. As you can see in our middle picture here, that's a picture of the gateway establishing a Bluetooth connection. And then when you add on a node, it adds that node to that gateway. So I could put two systems in one field within just a few feet of each other, and there will be no interference because they are completely set up to listen only to that gateway and to build their own individual mesh network. So then you add on a node, you add on sensors. When you do add them on, you can see the picture off to the left is showing you an exact picture of how the wiring diagram needs to be. You connect the wires as it says, you plug it in when it tells you to, and you click done, and the mesh network's established. The data is flowing from the sensors through the node back up to the gateway back up to our database, and you should be able to see it in a matter of 1 to 2 minutes on your cell phone. So the system is very extensive. We've got a few diagnostic pieces in the EnviroMonitor app. So it's a very valuable tool. And as I say, with the EnviroMonitor app, it is very dedicated towards setting up the system and not requiring you to do a whole lot more other than put the sensors in the ground. All of this is driven by Bluetooth, and we have gotten a lot of accolades over the years. So we're very happy and very proud of this tool. And it's one of a set of the apps that we have available.
If I may just interject for a second, I love this app because as Joel said, the being able to tie into this gateway via Bluetooth, as many growers struggle with, you've got no connectivity, right? Cell connectivity out in the middle of nowhere, which is your farm in the middle of nowhere, right? And being able to just tie in and do what you need to do without worrying about whether you have cell connectivity, it is so simple. You open the door on this little gateway, Bluetooth turns on, your phone discovers it so easily. And then the other part that I just love is these pinouts where it just is so super easy. Great, you're taking this sensor, these are the colors to plug into these pieces on here, and go. So anyway, you guys should be proud of it because you've done an amazing job on that.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable developing this over the years. So the EnviroMonitor app allows us to get set up, but then after that, we want to view the data. So we created a Mobilize app, and this allows you to see data in a reporting style, in a report, if you think about it that way. So we have a few different, we have an irrigation report, frost report, crop report, as is shown here. We also have a weather report and an integrated pest management report. Here we go. So with all these reports, you have a few different ways. We're showing the graphics here, so you can see the charting. As you can see on the weather monitoring report, you've got that dashed line down the middle. You've got actual data on the left. You've got forecasted data on the right. So this is really handy with our, most specifically with our frost report. And as Rodney had mentioned, these are some of the tools that he's using to monitor very closely. With our weather monitoring, report, that monitors everything from the sensor street, from the weather station. Then you've got our irrigation report, that's monitoring your soil moisture, your rain events, and your flow meter and pressure sensors for irrigation events. So, and all that's put together along with the report. The nice thing about Mobilize is there's no limit on reports. All of them are clustered together in what we call a view. So if you think about that as like a file, you give the file a name, you give the view a name, and then when you open the Mobilize app, all of your views are listed there, along with the most pertinent information and a flag that is giving you an alert as to whether or not you are exceeding any of the limits that you've set on any of your other, on any of the sensors in each report. So all of your views are prioritized by how many exceedances they have. And so you can see immediately on the very front landing page, everything that's outside of the thresholds you set, or if everything's great, you can pick and choose. You open them up, you can see all the reports. You can drill down and see data. You can open up the graphing and see graphing. The little wrench in the upper right-hand corner allows you to make your changes and set things up. With our integrated pest management, you can see a special note there that we sprayed on this particular date, and everything can be readjusted. Integrated pest management works 100% off of an index. And as that index moves from one insect phase to another, or one disease to a higher level, then that's all indicated there on the graph. And you can drill down and see very specific pictures and whatnot of everything going on in the pest and disease management. In this particular case, we've got great powdery mildew. So we're proud of the Mobilize app too. It's a nice way to look at views. But when you really want to drill down and you really want to get a computer involved, now that's weatherlink.com's task. This is a browser app, a browser software, runs on your PC, and here you have full access to all the data. You have a landing page that gives you bulletins, a quick view of all the sensors, the data, everything you've got out in the field. Then you can move over to a charting tab that will allow you to put a myriad of data. You can make things incredibly complicated or as simple and straightforward as you like. Anything you want to chart, any sensor you have out in the field, any data that's even calculated is available to put on a chart and graph that. You also have a data tab that allows you full access to all of your data. You can share these devices, these data sets with other people. You have an unlimited ability to show your data to anybody else, the current set. And then historical for graphing and whatnot, you can get that out to your agronomist, out to your field managers. And so in that way, you're all looking at the same data set and whatnot. We've also built in a tie in the weatherlink.com to the Mobilize app, and one of the tabs allows you to see exactly what's in some of the feed work in the Mobilize app that we've got going also. So weatherlink.com is your tool for sharing data, for viewing all your data, for charting, doing printouts and storing these charts in a PDF format, for setting all your alarms. Every sensor in the field, every data piece, if it's evapotranspiration, if it's wet bulb temperatures, those can all be alarmed to receive a notice to your cell phone or by text message or by email. And you can put an unlimited number of people to receive this data, these alarms. So, and there's high-low alarms for each, and you can turn each one on and off in a heartbeat. So it's a very useful tool. The nice part is we've built the app so that you can still work with everything on your phone and not have to go to the computer every single time you want to see data. But sharing data is a great feature in this, and people have really enjoyed that also.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel, for covering all that. To round it out for the Davis side of things, I did want to mention AgWeathernet, since Innovate Ag is based out of Washington, works closely with Washington State University, and that's where the Smart Orchard is that kind of brought us all together here. Davis is officially integrated with AgWeathernet as a Tier 3 approved station. To be involved, all you need is one of our cabled Vantage Pro 2 weather stations, the Grow Weather to be specific, with that daytime fan. You'll need a EnviroMonitor gateway and a 15-minute data plan. And the nice thing is optionally you can add on a node to the system with a Davis leaf wetness sensor and those meter soil sensors. So we've integrated those into our system as well. And you can get it all covered and all on AgWeathernet with that package. Lastly, if you're interested in getting started with EnviroMonitor, we broke it down into simple packages. The first bundle here will be your cellular package. So you get your cabled Grow Weather sensor suite, your EnviroMonitor Cellular Gateway. It'll be a 15-minute annual service plan and a one-time gateway activation fee, just short of $1,800 for that starting cost. The second bundle, you'll get the IP gateway, so the one that connects with your Wi-Fi or Ethernet, wireless Grow Weather sensor suite, a 15-minute annual service plan, and a gateway activation fee. So just short of $1,500 to start that system. You can always add nodes later on. And if you want to talk about it or get something started, you can always reach out to myself or Joel. Our information's right there. We'd love to chat with you. And with that, I think I'll hand it back over to Steve.
That's great. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Joel. So just to clarify then too, so bundle A on the left is all about just connecting over the cellular providers, and the right-hand side is assuming you've got a Wi-Fi connection to tie it into. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, great. I love that flexibility as well. Good. So let's switch gears briefly and talk about the Smart Orchard pilot and what some of our learnings are from there. We basically rolled out this Smart Orchard with the Washington Tree Fruit Research Commission and collaborated closely with Washington State University on enabling 2 20-acre blocks. This is just north of Pasco, Washington. The intent was to really pull together many different sensor providers, and not just on the environmental monitoring, but also soil nutrient sensors from a company called Terralytic, as an example. Phytech, who's providing dendrometers and irrigation monitoring. AquaSpy is providing soil moisture sensors in here. Davis is in the center of the orchard as well with one of those systems that we just shared. one of the things we loved about Davis is those third-party integrations, and so that enabled us to easily plug in a photosynthetic active radiation light meter or light bar from a third party called Spectrum Technologies, and it was way easier than I expected it to be. That's the beauty of that little app, is you just connect in via Bluetooth and the pinout's shown, you boom, 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 and you're done, and the data was flowing. Then we also had in here Tektronix and AgWeathernet. They presented last week, and they provided in-canopy weather sensors as well as PSI monitoring for irrigation throughout. And then we actually pulled in other sources, as you'll see on this next slide, which was, it's not just about the sensor data, it's also about pulling in orchard management data on what the variety is and what the nutrient chemical applications are and what irrigation applications look like, pruning, on drone imagery as to what that looks like for NDVI and PRI and NDRE, red edge, and so on, sap flow sensors, really pulling all that all together. And that's what Innovate Ag does, is we leverage our capabilities in Microsoft's Azure cloud computing platform and a capability that they have called FarmBeats. And then we can easily tie in these data sources from many different places. And Davis is partnered in with Microsoft as well around a capability called FarmBeats. And so you literally can go into that WeatherLink portal that Joel showed earlier, select basically in the configuration a FarmBeats dropdown, and then put in 2 or 3 different pieces of data that we can provide, and then boom, all of your data just starts flowing through into that centralized platform. So you have the best of both worlds, and that you can use the WeatherLink platform and site and all the custom reporting that you can do in there. You can use the Davis apps, and then Innovate can really pull it together to tie in with these other data sources that are listed over here on the left. What you saw happening on the bottom left-hand corner as well was and I'll start that one more time if I can get that right. There we go. Is we also bring in Green Atlas as a partner, and basically drive an ATV up and down the orchard rows at 20 miles an hour. It's a real hoot, and someday I'm gonna have fun watching Jessica scream with delight as she's zipping up and down these things. You can basically put one of your field hands on this ATV, push a button, and effectively what you're doing is imaging and capturing what your crop yield distribution looks like, as well as what your canopy height and area looks like. And so you're seeing here, as we're kind of clicking through here, it gives you kind of this Google Maps type of view. And this one is actually showing what the apple density looks like. We can even do that earlier on in the season with blossoms, so it helped on making decisions around chemical and machine thinning. And then you can actually get a Google Street View style, really be able to zip right on in and look at any one of these images, and you see basically where those red little squares are. That's where we're using machine learning to identify what that apple count is. So you can zoom in on any part of your orchard and then be able to do this throughout the season. And so what we love about this ties together cause and effect. As you're making some of the changes from the disease and pest models and so on from WSU and other insights that you're learning from Davis and others in the ecosystem, we can now actually log what that was that you did, and then look 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road and see, well, did that actually have an impact toward getting toward uniformity, fruit quality and quantity distribution in a uniform way throughout the orchard. We then actually have a view that I don't think I have on screen today, but really brings together, it's a dashboard that brings together many data sources for irrigation planning purposes. So effectively, helps you understand how many inches were applied over the season, year over year, in the last week. And then what are ET estimations? Where are you in growing degree days thus far? What's the real-time wind and temperature, both above canopy and critically in canopy, and tying that all in together. And then the last piece that we have that some growers are interested in, we have this earlier in our series, is insights with automation. And so that's where, for an example of that, is where Tektronix AgWeathernet has auto water. So they basically take the soil moisture data, look at what the percolation rate is, tie into your pumps and valves throughout your system, and can work towards some degree of basically hands-off management of your irrigation throughout the season. And we've successfully done that for a full season for a vineyard, and you can go back and look at our earlier in our webinar series for more information on that and testimonial from a grower that's actively using that. We do have an app that's available in Android and iOS where you can look at the consolidated data all together. It's a tongue twister. So there's lots more to learn with webinars that we have coming up. And I will say, we would love to hear from you. If you would like to hear more about specific areas, partners, where you would like to have that data kind of pulled all in together, we're starting to work more and more toward pulling in labor data as an example. And we will tee up in January an overview from one of our ag economists to talk through some of the studies that she did on the Smart Orchard around labor utilization and distribution and chemical. Meter Group will come and speak in mid-January and talk about some of the work that they're doing around microclimates and nanoclimates. And then you can see the two on-demand webinars that we have here. We did talk at the annual Hort Show, which some of you or many of you on this call attended and are now actually having a little bit of a breath after that. We did have a session on Tuesday, which is available on demand on the Smart Orchard, where Sean Tweedy with Chawana, as well as Bernardita Salato and Love Cott of WSU spoke to their learnings and research around ET estimations, as well as correlation between soil nutrients and fruit quality. Pretty interesting stuff, and we'll delve into that, I think, even more so in as we get into January. And then check out our blog posts. So that's more or less it. We will open it up to see if there are any Q&A. And I wanted to say again, huge thank you to Joel and Jessica with Davis and Rodney earlier for joining us. And let's see what we've got for Q&A. So one of the questions that had been asked earlier was, how does Davis data tie into Innovate Ag? And I think I already covered that. Basically, it's in the WeatherLink portal, and there's a few click downs or a couple of clicks, and basically the data can flow. If you've had Davis Instruments gear for a number of years, even somebody like Rodney, he could do 2 or 3 clicks and boom, he could share a year's worth of data or 5 or 10 years worth of data, however long is kind of sitting in that system and tying it all together. Then a question for Joel was what the range capacity of sensors is to the main hub.
Yeah, so I saw that question. It's interesting if you consider the main hub as being the gateway, because the entire system is completely remote. It's standalone, doesn't need anything else. And we're looking at 3,000–4,000 feet between gateway to node or node to node, each one. So if you think about it as roughly 3/4 of a mile. We also have auxiliary antennas that can be utilized to extend that range out to 10,000 feet and beyond. So when you can connect up to 20, 25, even 30 nodes, all depending on how many sensors you have on, how much bandwidth you're using, and you think each one can be 1-2 miles, you can see that you can quickly stretch out for many, 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 many miles. But the whole point of a mesh network is to get that network up so that if one node has to jump over to another node to get the data back to the gateway, that's what you want. You don't want it linear. But yeah, we can reach out quite a distance with each individual node.
That's great. And so then a variation on that, Joel, is have you even investigated using cellular as backhaul for nodes compared with building mesh?
So not really. If we do that, then we're increasing the cost for the entire system as far as the cellular service plan. Our whole goal of this was to collect data from a vast area, bring it back to one focal point, create one reoccurring fee for the farmer, not 10 or 20 reoccurring.
Right.
So easy to install, low cost, accurate, durable. That's the foundation that we set all of ours on.
I love it. Well, and so as a variation on that as well, I will say from an investigative perspective, Innovate Ag is very much leaning in hard on how do we help towards solving rural connectivity challenges. And we are kicking off a pilot actually in a week and a half on private LTE in orchards and what the challenges are. And we also, as part of our 2021 Smart Orchard plan, are expanding to a second location, and connectivity is one component of that we'll be leaning in a little harder on as well. But very much to Joel's point, what is fabulous about the Davis piece is it's a keep it simple, stupid principle, right? The KISS. And that's inclusive of using Bluetooth just to configure that gateway should you have no connectivity at all. Randall Chipman had the question around whether the imaging systems will be able to work in 3D canopies. So we are planning on a deeper dive in with Green Atlas as we get into January. The system is being used today in V-trellis and single spindle. So should be able to do what you're looking for, but we would love to talk more specifics. And Randy, please do reach out to us directly, and we can do a one-on-one and get you those answers. Great question. And Jeff, Alan, thank you for the thank you. So last call on any questions, but we're more or less at time. Again, we would really love to hear from you as to how relevant this is to you, how you would like to use it, what are impediments to adoption. And I will say from an Innovate perspective, we're largely about tying into a combination of sensors that you already have deployed. Again, that's where Davis shines because of their interoperability with so many other systems. As well as bringing in some newer things that you may not have done anything in. We'd also love to have you come out and learn from us on the Smart Orchard. Again, we'll be rolling out more next year with dendrometers, with sap flow sensors. We plan on doing a lot more around soil nutrient testing. Even though we did plenty this year, I think we had 9 different locations throughout the 20-acre block that we did soil nutrient tests every week and compared those against the Teralytic soil nutrient probe. And we're working to queue them, Teralytic, up to speak to what they did there once we get past Christmas. So with that, it looks like we don't have any more Q&A. Again, huge thank you to Joel and Jessica for speaking today, and Rodney from an Almond perspective and longtime Davis Instruments customer. Really was fantastic to have you here today. Thank you so much. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.